Winnipeg is back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome to the landing strip with Nik Lynham and Mikey Garcia, presented by From Financial.
Welcome back to the landing strip, a day after edition. And folks, that is my bad. Went out to the post-Christmas game with a few buddies. And the way that one ended, and the beers that we were into, I think we needed to take the night. Got to enjoy the vibes around this time of year. I don't think I would have gotten anything good out of doing a show after that loss. I don't know if the crowd would have. And as Frosty Winnipeg says, not sure if the show is on a day after a Jets loss or a day before a Jets loss, with the Oilers coming into town tomorrow. This could be a bit of a bridge for both, but we are back to discuss the Winnipeg Jets blowing a late one in a game that I genuinely thought they played pretty well, but they shoot themselves in the foot again to the Minnesota Wild, 4-3. Mikey, how are you doing this weekend?
You know, it's pretty cool because the Jets have become, I think, the Rorschach test for the NHL. You take a look at them and you can kind of see what you want to see. You can kind of see what maybe you need to see. You can come away from that game saying, man, they played one of the hottest teams in the NHL right to the teeth. You can come away from that game saying, man, the Jets can't get out of their own fucking way. You can come away from that game going, the Jets got screwed. There's so many ways that you can look at that game and come away with a different opinion. So the way things have gone lately, I just want to make sure that the most important part of last night's game isn't missed, and that's this.
Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. Don't stop. We'll soon be here.
The tank rolls on. Even though they get a loser point, that's okay. They don't pick up the all-important big win in the division. Further the chance that we're going to come away from this season, hopefully with a nice draft pick. And hey, like I said, they're the team of moral victories right now.
Yes, they certainly were. And there was a lot of blame from the dressing room coming onto the refs after that one. We'll get into all of that. There's debates around Scotty Arniel and the center he chose for the last shorthanded opportunity. We'll get into that. But I think Jordy Angus asks the right question here, and I'm going to pitch it to you before asking for your big takeaway. Was last night's loss the most Jets loss of the season so far? Dumb penalty, blown lead, game lost early in overtime. And this is kind of where I'm at, I think, a day late. The Winnipeg Jets were the Winnipeg Jets last night. They were them at their peak self. Like, I thought they played Minnesota really well the bulk of that hockey game. But they cannot get out of your own way. Was that the most Winnipeg Jets loss?
You know, I would almost say yes, but I think the loss in overtime is a little not so typical for them. They're usually pretty good in overtime. I like their chances with their usual starting three. But otherwise, yeah, you could say that's pretty much their season as a whole, right? Stretches of, pretty decent play, hanging in there with a tough team, a division game. But really, at the end of the day, they found a new and interesting way to lose. And that's kind of been their modus operandi lately. Scott Arniel's talked about it many times in the recent games. So it's tough to come away from that game. Honestly, I think that's, again, you get a little bit of something for everybody. It's kind of hard not to come away from that game. Kind of okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to Frosty's takeaway over on YouTube, and then we're going to ask you yours. What your biggest thought coming out of the Wild versus Jets is, Frosty Winnipeg said, I wouldn't feel so bad about getting a lump of Jets coal for Xmas if I had the power of Superman to crush it into a diamond, but I don't. I'm not Stanley, And the Stanley gets the crowd going. That was one thing last night. Sold out crowd. That place was buzzing. And with that early goal and with the Stanley fight right after, that building was electric. For it to get deflated the way it did at the end of that one is probably the most disappointing part of the whole thing.
Yeah, you had the opportunity for a real classic to kind of explode. Coming out of the break, put all the negativity behind you, get a big win at home against a divisional team, and then it all falls apart real quickly right at the end.
Mm-hmm. Mikey, what is your big thought coming out of the Jets versus Minnesota Wild? I have a few different ways to go here, so I'm curious to see where you go.
So I wrote down and deleted my thought maybe about 8 times yesterday. No joke, because it just, like I said, there's so many ways that you can kind of come away from that game. But I think after a little bit of time away from it, at the end of the day, it's still these same old Jets. They're okay, in short stretches. They've got a pretty good system when they've got the right pieces to run it. But they just don't have enough talent, enough juice to kind of put themselves over when everything doesn't go exactly their way. If there's any type of controversy, if there's any type of adversity, unfortunately, they don't have enough to come back from that. You can complain about the reffing all you want. I don't really care. It's not the end. At the end of the day, that's not what changes the game for me. The Jets had plenty of opportunity to put that game away before that. And those type of things happen. Calls get missed. Calls get overblown. Shit balances out over time. I don't want to hear that the refs are against us and they hate Winnipeg and the league hates Winnipeg, blah, blah, blah. That's tired. That's played out. It's just not true. I'm not even going to entertain it. So, yeah, I don't care about the reffing. I don't care about all that stuff. What I saw at the end of the day was a team that put everything that they had into it, every beat of sweat, effort, and skill, but they just didn't have quite enough to overcome a little bit of adversity.
And on that topic, the chat is already getting on Scott Arniel. Scarborough says, rumored has it, Arniel has lost the room. Matt Rothman says, they're saying, as the saying goes, bad teams find a way to lose. We're just a bad team right now. Jordy Angus says, I'll also say Arniel and 55's post-game comments are inexcusable. No accountable at all for the late penalty. And Arniel losing his mind at the end and putting Barron on. It's all the refs, ... And Al Camino says, Scott Arniel coached the last few games on tilt. It's safe to say we're going to have a bit of a Scott Arniel conversation here as we get into this show, as people have some big takeaways. And I know I've been defending the guy, but yesterday was a game I'm pretty pissed off with Scotty Arniel too. We're going to have some of those combos. But you know what my big takeaway yesterday was, actually?
What's that?
And it was kind of blissful. I kid you not, and it could have been the beers. I walked out of that arena laughing my ass off. Like, at this point, like, what more could you say? You got to find the humor in this. For them to blow it in that fashion, truly funny. As soon as that penalty was called, you knew it was going to overtime. There was no way they were surviving it.
Yep.
But my big takeaway from last night's game, Scarborough 21 had earlier in the show said, no, guys, you're looking at all this all wrong. This is exactly what the Jets need to do. Tank. My biggest takeaway last night, and has carried through with me to the morning here and into the evening. We saw the Winnipeg Jets play one of their best games against one of the better teams in the NHL. And they still, no matter what you think about the missed call on Josh Morrissey, they still managed to shoot themselves in the foot and lose this hockey game. We'll talk about the missed call, but I watched Nino Niederreiter, not even in the play, go offside and take back Gustav Nyquist's highlight of the year. Could have been his first goal. And for some reason, Nino Niederreiter is just casually standing offside on the opposite side of the ice. I watched Dylan DeMello, which we've seen a lot of this year. So, I mean, this one's not really a surprise at this point. But we saw Dylan DeMello get caught flat-footed against a guy in Kirill Kaprizov. You probably don't want to get caught flat-footed against.
Yep.
And that's on our top pairing. On that goal, what I found odd, and that's at my end of the ice, right? Hellebuck was beat before Kaprizov even crossed the blue line. He was so deep in his net that me and my buddy Cars that used to do the show with us, we turned to each other. We're like, what the hell? He couldn't even move. He was already so back up, and Kaprizov made him kind of look silly there on that one, I thought. I mean, Kirill Kaprizov getting a breakaway, it's probably going in either way, but it was a weird moment from Winnipeg Jets' best player, in my opinion.
Yep.
You get the stupid retaliation penalty from Dylan DeMello with, 30 seconds left? Not even. Where I get it. It's a frustrating sport. But I tend to agree that with Jordy with the idea that we're hearing all this about the reffing, and it should have been a call. I believe they should have got a penalty on the Josh Morrissey play. But you know what else I also learned a lot growing up playing this sport? They're always going to catch the retaliation. Take a number. You know how many times my ass got caught retaliating, doing stupid shit? This is coming from experience. This isn't coming from a lecture. This is someone that did that shit all the time, and it hurt the team sometimes. Absolutely ridiculous play. While it's going up the ice for a chance at an empty net goal, takes a goal off the board. The Winnipeg Jets veterans in DeMello and Niederreiter, specifically in this instance, take 2 goals off the board. That's the game. And not only do you take the goal off the board, you go down shorthanded. You give Minnesota's best players, who after getting Quinn Hughes and talk about a game from him today, I thought he had trouble with his puck touches, and he still found a way to 3 points. Crazy. That's what elite players do.
Yep.
But you give that team a chance. They tie it. Mark Scheifele gets a great opportunity overtime. And I'll say that it was very Winnipeg Jets, because the Winnipeg Jets' best players were very good again last night. They created a ton of opportunities. They got all 3 goals. I thought Scheifele was going to score on that one-timer in overtime. But then going the other way, a bit of their problem, Mark Scheifele gets caught running around, and then it's a 3-on-2, game over. And that's how 3-on-3 works. It was very 2025, 2026 Winnipeg Jets. And I came away kind of blissful, because I think this idea that some people are still talking to themselves into, that this team's going to find a way to come into the wild card or just miss the wild card, and they're going to go on a run that's going to get them to that point. Last night, and it's been a worry of mine because I want the top pick. Last night killed that idea for me. They played a good hockey game that they still shot themselves in the foot. I think last night for me was the dagger about worrying about where they're going to draft. This team's going to be a bottom 5 to 10 team. They don't have it. This is not the year. And when you do stuff like that so consistently, shoot yourself so in the foot so consistently, and the message from the coach is, oh, it's okay, we lost because of the ref, and nothing's going to change in the lineup, this is how you breed mediocrity. This is how you breed the same result over and over. This is how you breed going from first place in the NHL to 30th with no signs of even fighting back. This is who they are this year. I'm not even worried about them falling out of a spot where I'm not going to be happy with the pick. This team is just not good.
Yeah,
I'm blissfully there.
We used to think that the roster was at least Connor Hellebuck proof, to the point where they're not going to be a bottom feeding team. They're never going to be a lottery team. They had Hellebuck out for all of those weeks, and they lost a ton of games over that span. They're not winning games with Hellebuck in there anyways right now. They're bad to the point at the moment that not even Hellebuck is able to push that over. Yeah, he's getting them, closer in a lot of these games. Yeah, he's gotten them to overtime in a couple of them. But at the end of the day, they are closer to the bottom of the league than they are anywhere near a playoff line. They're a bottom 3 team by points. They're a bottom 3 team by points percentage. They're on pace to be the worst team that the 2.0 Jets have been since they've been back.
This is 36 games.
This is not a one player away. This is not a, they're going to turn the switch on. This isn't the old, Hawks and Kings back when, they'd kind of, even the Lightning, they'd kind of sleepwalk until the playoffs and then turn it on and go on. That's not what this is right now. You're seeing a team that's giving everything they have, every ounce in that game, and still finding creative ways to blow it up for themselves. So if they're going to have the opportunity to be in a lottery position this year, they need to take that. They need to grab it while they can. Cash in on that, dump any players that are expiring, dump anybody that's got, even a tiny bit of value, and restart for next season.
Yeah, you can't even use the games played argument anymore. If they won both their games at hand, they're still falling short. They no longer even control that destiny. And who's banking on them to win 2 games in a row at this point? Not I.
No.
Not I.
Especially when you remember their strengths of schedule now going forward, right? The easy part of the year is done for the Jets. That was the easy part of the season. They have the 3rd hardest schedule going forward in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, jumping over the chat on this topic, I see T. Kona's in the chat. Good to see you. And he mentions even Helly struggling way too deep in his net. And I think he just got here. And that was something I pointed out, especially on that Kaprizov look. He was already nearly on the goal line as he crossed the blue line.
I mean, if I had Kaprizov dashing towards me like that, I'd also shit my pants and move back.
Fair. Jordy says, some of this fan base is out to lunch. People were on me about being too negative when the team is third worst in the league by points percentage. Like, that's just a reality we wake up in here.
Yeah.
We don't even have to sell it at this point. This is what they are. On this night, though, I did think we saw, how do I want to put this? We saw a better 5-on-5 game from the top 9, or what they've constructed as the top 9, than we've seen in some time. Now, once again, the offense only comes from the top guys. On that Josh Morrissey goal to open the game, Kyle Connor goes dancing through the neutral zone and then gets it back in the O zone and sets up Morrissey for that blast. Great to see. That line continues to do what they're doing. Kyle Connor gets on the board himself from Mark Scheifele and Gabe Vilardi. And then Scheifele scores off of Jonathan Taves' one faceoff in the last 5 seconds of the second, which had people interested in Arneal's decision for that last penalty kill after the Dylan DeMello penalty. So I want to touch there before I talk about the top line a little bit and how much they've meant, but also looking at them a bit on a league-wide perspective, because I'm at the point where I'm done with this idea they can't be broken up even after a game like last night. But one of the big popular talking points leaving this on social media last night and on some of the other shows I was listening to was a lot of the anger towards Scott Arneal, who decided with 30 seconds left and a face-off in their own zone on the penalty kill to send Barron out there to take the draw with Alex Iafallo. Barron went into that draw 1 for 6. Lowry was 11 for 5. Taves was 10 and 3. Lowry 11 and 5, sorry. And Scheifele was just over 50% on the night. Do you think Scotty Arneal fucked up yesterday, to put it bluntly?
You know,
and what would you have done if you do think you did?
I think I can't remember if it was on the broadcast itself, but or if it was on one of the Sportsnet shows. But somebody kind of mentioned that it almost felt like Scott Arneal was so distracted by arguing with the ref at that point that he just kind of put out the first thought of penalty killers for there and wasn't taking in, I think, the context of the rest of the evening and how the things have gone maybe. And I kind of maybe fall into that camp. I think he was maybe caught up in the emotion, put out the guys that he would normally put out in that type of situation, and just kind of moved on. Yeah, I probably try to ride the hot hand, to be honest. If I have the clarity of mind in that moment, I'm thinking about it. I'm looking at the sheet of who's hot tonight in that faceoff dot. We need to win the draw there. I'm not big on the faceoffs are the most important thing in the world camp. I think it's one puck battle out of many in a game, but in that type of situation, yeah, I probably would have gone with the hot hand, but I can maybe understand that he got caught in the emotion of fighting with the ref and everything else.
As DL 14204 says, why Taves wasn't out there blows my mind. Frosty Winnipeg says chat chased after Rennie from KNR for supporting Barron taking the face off. I don't know if I'm going to be that far off of Rennie, so that might be interesting. I do have a different take from Rennie, though. I did listen to him this morning out of curiosity. Scarborough points out he's made a boatload of mistakes. Why the fuck did he start Lowry in OT the last game? Frosty Winnipeg said, I think Liz said that about Arneal. Al Camino said he's lost his mind. He forgot we were still winning. So here's what I'm going to say. I'll present what Murat tweeted out that Scott Arneal said when asked, because you're on the right track, Mikey, with Scott Arneal himself. Then I'm going to kind of get into my take on the entire situation. So Scott Arneal, when asked, said, Bear's pretty good at it too. That's why he's been taking them. It was on the right side, so I was thinking between Scheif and Bear. Bear had already won a couple on our PK, which seems to be inaccurate given he won one faceoff last night. Yep. And that was the reasoning with it. Him and AI were starting all of our PKs. They were the first two guys that go over the boards. We've been running with that for the last couple of games, and it's been having success. So that was the idea behind it. So, Mikey, you're on the same path, and you completely nail what was going on through his head. Here's where I'm different here. I think he was half right, and who went out with Barron was wrong. I'm with Rennie when it comes to the not having Taves out there thing. I don't think that is the move. I think that's a bit of an all or nothing play. And like if Taves loses that faceoff, it's basically a 6-on-3 with what he's looked like in the D zone this year. Let's just put it bluntly.
Yep.
If he does not win that draw, it's probably going in the back of the net with what Taves has looked like as an NHL player this year.
Yep.
Where I think Scott went wrong and sticking to that situation is I tend to agree with you on faceoffs tend to get over extrapolated, but I do think in zone draws, especially on special teams, and how much puck possession amplifies in those situations have a heightened value.
Agree.
I think in your own zone, especially 30 seconds left, you're up one. You need that draw. You get one clear, you're pretty much there. What I would have done and why I think Arneal got this wrong and should be criticized is not putting Taves out there. I would have gone Lowry in the dot with Barron as the extra PKer. I would have had Adam Lowry taking the draw, and he's been on the PK all year. He's always been a PKer for Winnipeg. And you have Barron's feet reacting to that draw from the inside. What happens there is then you have two centers in case one gets kicked out, but you do have one of your two best centers that is winning draws out there, and Barron's speed and grind can still be utilized. I think he got too one-track minded in the situation. I think he was overthinking it a little bit. I do think Barron should be out there. He's earned it. I don't think he's the problem. I would have gone Lowry Barron there and trusted Adam Lowry with that draw. Going to Barron in that draw with how big that draw is and winning that draw probably is priority number one given the time left. I don't love that move. I think that's a boneheaded move that he rightfully should be getting beat up for.
Yeah.
But I don't think Jonathan Taves was the answer. I actually think Barron being out there with Adam Lowry was the answer.
Yeah, I agree. Lowry was right there all night in terms of staying in the same type of realm for wins and losses in the faceoff dot. Do you put a lot into the left-handed versus right-handed for that position there?
What's that?
It's because Scott Arneal said because it was a right-handed side, he was going to go with Barron or Scheifele. He wasn't even considering Lowry. Do you think that would have made a big difference going Lowry there instead?
I think he's overthinking the side there a little bit. Personally, I'm not trusting Scheif probably down on a 6-on-4.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And Adam Lowry might be on his offside, but he's also a physical presence in that dot where if he's not going to win something clean, he's going to get you a tie-up for Barron to react to and potentially get a hold of. That's where I think he went wrong.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
That's where I'm at with it. The Taves thing, it just, for me, I can't get there.
Yeah, no, it's
I can't
fine.
get there with everything I've seen.
It's great that he had a good night in the dot, but we've approached Jim Slater territory of get out there, win the dot, and then skate to the bench and get off. And unfortunately, when you're down 6-4 there, that you don't have that opportunity. You don't have that luxury.
Yeah, so I think the Taves stuff is getting a little excited because he won that draw that Scheifele scores on. But if he even draws and it's an even draw, the Jets are down basically 3 guys with how he looks as a hockey player this year.
Yeah, I love running a set play like that. There's only a couple seconds left at the end of a period that they did, like where they scored on it. I love stuff like that. That's great. But you just don't have that opportunity right now because if you don't win that draw, if this is the one time that you don't, then you're in for a world of hurt.
And as T. Conopoli says, it was always going in the back of net with a face-off loss, and it sure had that vibe as soon as that penalty was taken.
Yep.
Caitlin Doucette also says, I want to defend him, but he's losing me the last few games. Is it a case of, yeah, Taves will probably win it, but if he doesn't, we're fucked with him on, which is, where I ended up going with it. And says face-offs are important, but face-off percentage is not actually a good way to tell how good someone is at face-off, which, that's fair, actually.
Yeah, that's fair. Agree.
The stats from Frosty Winnipeg. On the night, Taves was 77%, Lowry 69%, Scheifele 50%, Barron 17%. Just from a numbers perspective, that was the worst possible decision. I just don't think Taves is the right call. I think it's Adam Lowry in that spot with Morgan Barron also on the ice.
Yep, 100% agree with you on that one.
Jordy says, man, a Jim Slater reference. Unfortunately, that's who he is.
We bring the deep cuts. That's what we do.
Okay, so I teed up that first bit talking about how the Winnipeg Jets top line still showed up last night. They were still the only offensive punch the Winnipeg Jets have had. On the night, they outshot their opposition 15-9. They ran a 67 expected goals percentage. They outscored their minutes 3-1. Like I said, this was a fantastic night from them. But it's also a night I'm going to say, I'm totally done with it. I'm totally done with it. Like, at what point? We're talking about a team that's 30th place, that has won 3 games in their last 17. We're talking about a duo that has played more minutes together since 2017 than anyone in the entire NHL. We're talking about a duo, and I've kind of had enough of hearing this as well. It kind of pissed me off this morning listening to them being referred as one of the best top lines in the NHL because we're falling for the same mistakes again, and the team's falling for the same problems that even if they had a proper depth chart, what they're doing on the top line compared to the league standard is not good enough. And it's hard to shit on them because they're the only good thing going in Winnipeg. But let's talk about this for a second because I'm so done with this idea that you can't split them up and it could be the death knell. Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, despite playing the most minutes since 2017 together, will never be able to develop chemistry again if they don't play a few games apart. Let's talk about the league-wide perspective on the top line and why this idea that the Jets are so ingrained to this is a bigger problem. And even with proper, adequate depth, this isn't good enough. There has been 10 lines in the entire NHL that have played 225 minutes or more. Of those 10 lines, Winnipeg's line leads the pack at 434 minutes. We talked about this last year when they had over 900, and that's the reason why their raw numbers were so much ahead of any other line. But if you break it down to what they're doing with their minutes, they aren't nearly as competitive as the top groups in the NHL. If you take those same 10 lines that have played 225 minutes or more, again, only 10 in the NHL, and that's the only one over 400 minutes. They are dead last, 10 out of 10 in expected goals percentage. In fact, they're the only ones under 50%. When it comes to what they're creating offensively per minute, they're the second worst of those 10 lines. When it comes to what they're generating against and what's happening in their own zone, they are 10 out of 10. They are the most exciting thing going in Winnipeg because they could do highlight reel things. But when we're looking at this from a macro level of the NHL, it is their obsession with trying to make this work that will only continue to hold them back. Because even with a proper depth chart, or even if you were getting the production you were getting from the bottom 9 last year, you would run into the same problem that's been a problem in the playoffs the last 3 years and why they have not won a road playoff game. That line is so easy to match up against, and then you use Adam Lowry as the matchup defensive line, and they don't score. It is the biggest driver for why they are 0-11 in their last 11 road games that no one wants to talk about. So, yes, they're doing everything for Winnipeg. They deserve props for being the only exciting group. But at the same time, this is not nearly like the Arturi Lehkonen, Nekkonen, McKinnon line, who's outscoring their minutes by almost 30. We're talking about a line that's doing it by 9. Every 4 games, they get a goal up on their opposition. And you're watching the rest of your depth chart drown. Guys like Cole Perfetti and Gustav Nyquist are dependent on playing with one of those guys. They're secondary playmakers. So those bets you made are only being amplified worse by the fact you refuse to do the one thing you refused to do for 3 years. At some point, someone in this organization is going to have to grow a pair or wake up and realize that this group that they are betting their entire franchise on, for one, isn't NHL elite, and 2, is actually making the rest of their lineup worse by keeping them together. I'm done with it. Last night was one of the best games I've watched them play in person. I thought they handled a great mini team well, but I'm done with this. I'm done with this. What are we talking about here? We're talking 36 games of you know who the Winnipeg Jets are right now? They're the Atlanta Thrashers year one Winnipeg Jets.
Yep.
We've come full circle. I'm done with it.
Yeah. It's little Ladin Wheeler, but with a better goalie. Shout out to Andre Pavlik. Look, Connor Scheifele-Velarde, they play together a ridiculous amount. But when you take a look at what's actually being produced, you compared them to those other top lines, and they are obviously the worst of that grouping. Perfetti, Taves, and Nemestikov, who played over 100 minutes together so far this year, have a better expected goals for percentage, have a better expected goals against percentage. They are worse overall on the ice, their impact, than Perfetti, Taves, and Nemestikov.
I wouldn't say impact.
Just
say impact.
not offensively, but defensively.
Goals do provide real impact.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say impact.
But it's the myth that this is some ridiculously elite, cannot be broken up thing is just not real. It's just not there. At their very best, they're a top third of the league, top line. That's kind of where they peak out in that top third of the league. Anything above that is a story that you're being sold. It's just not there. And like you said, the rest of the roster then hurts. You have 2025, 2026 Tanner Pearson as a second line winger right now. Let that sink in, right? Tanner Pearson in the year of our Lord 2025, about to be 2026, is a second line winger on this team playing second line minutes. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You're hurting your homegrown guys like Perfetti, right? The develop portion of that draft and develop side of things. You're hurting your free agent bets. It doesn't work unless your goal is to tank the year for a really nice pick and for two guys to make the Olympics. In which case, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing right now.
It's one of those things that it's funny because it's the only thing that you can get real excited about. But the reality for the standard that we need to get to, that we're talking about, this idea that they could eventually compete for a cup one day will never happen with those two playing together. And it's even worse since Nick Ehlers walked out of time and exposed the big hole that was there. And as Caitlin Doucette says, they're cooking now and are the only bright spot on a bad team. But you need to remember, there's been countless times when them being welded together has drugged down winning teams. I feel like it's ad nauseum at this point, but no other team plays their three best players on one line anymore. Jordy Angus says this is 26-81-55 all over again, and it does look like it. And if you ask me honestly, before this year, I made a bet with someone that listens to this show that over the life of Kyle Connor's new contract, the Winnipeg Jets would not win a single playoff series. I'm going a little public with that one. I'm at the point where I'm wondering if I should be betting people that over the next 6 years of Mark Scheifele's contract, if him and Kyle Connor play less than 40 games apart over 6 more years,
you'll win that
over
one.
400 more games.
You'll win that one easy.
Like, what are we talking about? This isn't what happens in the NHL. It is so abnormal. And they are married to it. This goes into, like, Chevy swung and missed across the board. But unless you get a new brainchild in here, you're stuck with that side of it, too. Because guess what? He doesn't have the nuts to break them up. He's probably the biggest reason that they're still playing together.
100%.
There's no reason 4 NHL coaches all try the exact same thing and are all dedicated to trying the same thing that they got the last guy fired. At some point, someone's got to wake the fuck up. I'm done with it. This is where I'm at. I'm done with it.
The funny thing is, too, for the people who are, anti-Scott Arniel and are hoping the Jets are going to make a coaching change and that'll fix it. Do you think a new coach is going to get to come in and break them apart? No.
Hey, I'll say this.
They're going to be told the same thing when they're being interviewed for whatever spot. They're going to be, no, they stay together. So, I don't know. Is it really going to make that big a change?
I think Peter DeBoer breaks them.
Do you think they would hire somebody, though, that is going to
Probably not.
That's what I'm saying, right? They're not going to hire a coach that's going to go against what they're telling them in the interview process.
As Frosty Winnipeg says, and I've got to push back on this because I'm so done with it, says, it is tough to break up two guys who get 90-plus points together. We are talking about them simply doing it together because they play more minutes together than any other NHL combo. It's not because they are winning their minutes to such a degree that they arrive there. It is because they play hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more minutes than anybody else. And guess what? When the playoffs come, you have 7 games to win. Guess what? You don't have hundreds and hundreds of minutes to get to that extra additional offense that you're apparently generating over the course of the year. Everyone plays the same 60 minutes times 5, 6, 7 games. It will not work. It does not work. It is part of the problem here. And how is it tough to break them up? They're playing at this level, which they're going to at some point slump, and maybe that's when we finally see it. I don't know. Despite them playing at that level, we are talking about a 30th place NHL hockey team. 1 point out of the basement, 5 points out of the playoffs, chasing like 6 teams. What are we even talking about here? Any other NHL team in this position is trying these things and trying to find new ways. And in Winnipeg, 36 games in, the worst franchise start through 36 games, they can't even do the one thing that 31 other teams would do and 31 other teams do every single year. They haven't done it in 3 years. This is abnormal. This isn't like normal by NHL standards. It's become normalized in Winnipeg because it's all they know and it's all we've been fed and it's all that's been talked about. It is not normal in professional hockey to see this. And it's time to get loud about that because it's going to take them even further into the abyss.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what you have here.
Like you said, it's not that they're winning their minutes to such a degree that is, oh, how could you break it up when they're just absolutely dominating? They're not. They're fine. Against weaker teams, they get to feast. Against tougher opposition, they don't. That's just kind of who they are. And like you said, in the playoffs, you don't have that weaker competition to feast on. You don't have all those extra minutes to pad those counting stats. The cream, quote unquote, rises to the top. And when you're a middling at best or, top third at best type of thing, that's not going to be enough to carry you when the rest of the roster has Tanner Pearson as your second line winger. The roster construction beyond that top line is nowhere near good enough to leave all of your impactful talent in one spot.
As we'll continue to point out, Jordy Angus says, if 97 and 29 could play on different lines in Edmonton, 55 and 81 could be split up. We're talking about 2 guys that are tiers more important than 55 and 81 in that combination.
We talked about it with Taves. Taves mentioned it when, back in the day when him and Kane, when they would put them together, the nuclear option, right? Because normally they played apart because that's how you spread out the talent on your roster and try to get better matchups, try to win games. It's just, it's bananas that we keep having to go over things that are, concepts that are 20 plus years old in the National Hockey League by now.
It's crazy.
Frosty
Winnipeg.
Sorry, go ahead.
Frosty Winnipeg goes, DeBoer is still under Dallas contract until summer. No need to sign him when the team's bad. Want to stay bad for McKenna. Scarborough points out worst franchise start in history after a President's Trophy. They're well on pace for the worst season ever in the league history after President's Trophy. But we can't break up the top line. Can't do it. We're going to be in the NHL record books for how bad they are. But, hey, can't do it.
We can put a banner up for that.
Caitlin Doucette says they were so bad together for 5 to 6 years that grinding out a 51% expected goals over 82 games is considered untouchable.
They're not even at 51% for their expected goals. They're below 50 right now. It's crazy.
Al Camino says in 14 years, this team has missed the playoffs 7 times, lost in round 1 4 times, 3 times in 5 games or less. 2018 and last year were the outliers. And Ticona wants us to get the phone lines open as he's got some stuff to say. So we'll get into the From Financial Face-Off. We'll discuss what the difference in the Jets versus Wild game was. And then we'll open up those phone lines so that the mayor of Transcona could get on the line.
Let's hit it. Right on.
Before we get into it, I gotta shout out Mr. Meowcat. Nick, you say you're done, but I have a feeling you'll be back after the next game for more disaster analysis. Hey, we will be here miserably all season, working through all of this until there is a pivot made. When a pivot is made, we will change how we approach these conversations, but these things need to continue being trumpeted. The only time you'll be missing me is January 22nd. I will be going into the hospital for a big surgery. I'll be hospitalized for about a week, so we'll probably pause the show until the post-Olympic break as I sort through that. But I will be back. Don't worry. I'm done emotionally getting excited about this team, but this show will continue going. Don't worry.
Look, over on Twitch, Choices TK says that discussion and focus needs to move away from what they can do this year to fix it and to what makes this team better next year and in the future. So, yeah, I think a lot of us are hitting that spot of we're done for this year. We know that this is not a playoff team. We know that this is not a team to get excited about in terms of, winning the big games late in the year. But this is not hopeless, right? This is not the end of the world yet for the future. If the Jets can figure out a way to get creative and start turning things around, there's still a chance at this, right? But it's they're gonna have to start doing things we haven't seen them do in the past. The other thing too, over on Facebook, Miranda says, "Hey Nick, new sweater. Looks like it's purple from out here."
Yeah, I got the FFO Moose gear. Had to do it. I grabbed a sweater for someone for Christmas, and they had it on display.
Ooh,
and I had to rock it. The vintage
good.
Moose stuff.
I like
They
it.
did a good job with it. Scarborough points out no pivots. Embrace the tank. Oh, there's no pivot available in Winnipeg that will have this team do anything but tanking. Don't worry about that. I just want to see some kind of sign of life that this team actually understands the predicament they're in. That would make me feel a lot better at some point. But let's get into the From Financial face-off. What was the biggest difference that led to the result between the Minnesota Wild coming back late and beating the Jets in OT? What could have made the difference in winning that game? Mikey, what's your From Financial face-off on this night?
It's been the year of the brain fart. All year long, it's just been the Jets finding ways to, whatever cliche that you like, snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory, can't get out of their own way, tripped on their own dick, whatever one you like. It's just that's been their MO this year. And I was
Never
kind
had to
of
worry about
impressed. No, you don't know that one? Well, some of us know. It's just interesting that they're finding different ways to do it. So last night was again a new one, right? They put in a real good effort, a tough showing against Minnesota. It almost for certain points last night when it looked like the Jets might have had stolen a win. My big thought coming out of the game was going to be, do you remember how you felt after that Washington game? Right, where we kind of caught Washington on a bad night. Everybody started celebrating a little too hard, and then we were kind of, re-humbled again. That was kind of the feeling I was starting to get at certain points, but then they found a way to do what they do and, kept the tank going. So, yeah, my From Financial face-off is just the new and interesting ways they find to give up the game.
I like that. And over on YouTube, Jordy liked what you had to say, saying tripped on their own dick, the 2025 Winnipeg Jets story. From Financial, from Mr. Meowcat says, Nick, are you going to have some Embrace the Tank teas in 2026? Hey, we could get something cooked up if that's something people are interested in. I know I might do some Tank Commander fun stuff after losses. I might have gone off the wallet to try and spice up the show a little bit, but I'm not going to ruin that surprise until it comes in. We're going to embrace this tank real hard on the back end. We're going to find the optimism, but we're going to embrace it real hard. My From Financial face-off in this one was, I think you nail it. We could bitch about the refs. We could bitch about who's taking that last draw, which I think is very valid, and we talked about. But it is the Winnipeg Jets veteran players doing stupid shit to take goals off the board. And it has been all year. We're talking about the oldest team in the league. That offside blew my mind by Nino. What are we talking about?
Yep.
Gustav Nyquist put on a highlight reel. First time this year I saw a player in Gustav Nyquist. The speed, the vision, the shot. Thought pigs were flying outside. Gustav Nyquist. Maybe there's some trade value there. Let's get him making more of those plays. The DeMello stuff. It is what everyone knows. Like, he's cooked in the top pairing role at this point. He can't keep up with it anymore. Gets himself in tough situations. Takes more minors than anybody at this point, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And gets flat-footed. Like, Nino and DeMel, these are two of the guys that were, like, in that leadership group. They were key guys to bring in a new environment. And we're seeing the downside of their careers now, and it's killing them. It's killing them.
Yep. It's the same story that we keep having to hit on, and it's tough to see how they're going to get out of this one.
A few more in the chat. To shout out to Jordy, going to the game tomorrow. I will be there to watch McDavid with my youngest brother and a couple friends. We'll be up in the nosebleeds too. So I'll let you know. I'm in 312. So if you see me at the game, let's say hi. We'd love to meet you. I got to meet Blake Grist from the chat yesterday, actually, pregame.
Hell yeah.
It's always nice to see him commenting. So I'm all for that kind of thing. So if we run into each other, we'd love to meet you.
Need to get over to get to Facebook here. Zach Maggart watching from Northwest Missouri. Hopefully I can make it up to a game in the next couple years. And they say if you put a tank on a hat, they'll buy it. Zach,
yeah, maybe that's what we got to do.
We'll start looking into that. Zach also says we need to trade everyone we can, bring up some guys regardless of how bad we are, and be as fun bad and not old bad.
Hey, Zach had to be living the life down in Missouri after that Game 7 Manitoba Miracle. I get to chat with Zach on social media. Nice to see him in the chat. A few more From Financial Face-Offs as well. Over on YouTube. Tico Napoli, mistakes were made at every level, and it is them shooting themselves. That's what's so frustrating. Frosty says, at least we don't have to win 90% of our remaining games to make a top 3 in our division. We just need to win 75% of our games to get a wildcard spot. Yikes.
No big deal.
Jordy Angus's From Financial Faceoff is the team's refusal to change might land them a franchise-changing player. The road to get here sucks, but they're on the way. That is what's so, like, to me, funny about this all. It's also what frustrates me about the fact that we're not going to see change in that management booth.
No.
Or in that scouting booth. But the fact that them actually trying to do their jobs well ended us in the lottery after a President's Trophy speaks very glowing about those resumes, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think the best we can hope for at this point is if they go the polite route. You promote Chevy up and you bring in somebody below him, or you hire somebody above him. That maybe they can try to sneak something in that way and get a different vision, because at the moment I don't understand how you can expect the group that put you into this mess to be the ones to get you out of it. This was one of the 2 times they've had the opportunity to be proactive, and they came out of it with what you see in front of you right now between the deadline last year and the off season this year. It's I don't know how you expect them to do it.
Another From Financial Faceoff from Matt Rothman. Minnesota having a more proactive GM in Winnipeg. Mix of youth and vets on one side and just vets old dudes on the other. The main difference is the latter side create too many bozo moments.
Yep.
And I guess it's the one side of the debate I would side with the people that wanted Taves out there, though I think it's still wrong, is we were sold that these veterans and guys like him bringing this experience, and then we're hearing the next day that, oh, he hasn't played much PK, so we don't trust a guy like that. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth, as you've pointed out quite a few times, Mikey.
Yep. You ready for the mayor of Transcona?
Get the mayor of Transcona on the line. Let's talk to the guy.
Tico Napoli, you're on the landing strip.
Happy holidays, gentlemen.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Ticona.
Good. I hope everything's going well with that. But yeah, okay. You know what happens with old age? Because I'm getting old over here in Ticona. And what happens with old age is I find you don't take things as serious. Maybe that was when I was young too. But I can't take this organization serious at all. I just can't do it anymore. I mean, I typed in earlier, been a fan forever since the WHA days. And this failure to break up KFC in 55 almost makes me a non-fan of this team. I can't take them serious, and I hate the narrative it sets. I fight myself daily, not wanting to root for another team.
I feel it. It's hard, and it's what's most frustrating about that conversation for me, and maybe you could relate. For one, I completely agree with you. I have to make a decision on my season tickets in the next couple of weeks or next month, and I have trouble renewing for a franchise I don't believe is serious, and they aren't serious until they're willing to do something like that. The Winnipeg Jets are currently run as a country club, and do I want to be paying for that country club to exist when it's just going to piss me off that it does exist?
Well, and you touched on it earlier. They got what gazillion hours together. Don't hand me this crap if we split them up. Oh, they're hot now. If we split them up, they won't find their game. Well, they'll never. Bullshit. They'll be back to playing like they are right now. They know each other in their sleep. It's not about that. You got to spread the wealth amongst the team. It makes no sense, and you got to wonder what the narrative of the organization is. I touched on it earlier there last month. If you can't split them up, maybe it's time to trade one of them. But we know Chipman is fine with it like this, and that's not a team that really wants to, yeah, they'd hope to win a Stanley Cup. Well, you can hope to, but they're not really working truly towards it. They're more working towards getting in the first round, being, the mushy middle, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I've been a fan so long. It's discouraging. Of course, I want a cup in my life here in the city and not what. But more than anything, I don't want to be taken like as a fool.
And that's, you know what, that's what pisses me off, especially when I hear some of the other shows that actually defend this crap. You treat this market and this fan base like they're stupid by having those conversations and defending some of this stuff. And there is nothing that I hate worse than when times are good and it's like, oh, this market's so smart. This is a smart franchise or fan base. And then when times are bad, it's like, actually, no, these guys are ridiculous. You got to keep doing this. You guys are actually stupid. We aren't the stupid ones right now. The team that is stuck in this are the stupid ones. And I'm tired of watching stupidity over and over.
You know what? The real hockey people that know hockey, they're going to lose that fan base. They're going to have their whatever fans that are just, all aboard the hype trains and whatever. But real fans that know hockey, that actually want a winning team and whatever, like, I embrace the rebuild, no problem, if it means being serious about building a real team. That's going to, do things at real cost. That these guys won't play a part is beyond ridiculous at this point.
And you're likely watching 6 more years of it.
Ago.
Yeah. And we're still here. And they've won 3 games in their last 17. What the fuck are we talking about here?
Go figure.
This is pro sports.
And their biggest fear is if we split them up and put them back together, we won't be able to count on them for anything. So we'll just plug along, hoping we can succeed here because they're going, but we won't try anything else because we know we don't really have the talent to do any better.
Yeah, hey, they're both so good and Olympians, but you split them apart and they're not going to score any goals ever again. Apparently, that's what I'm hearing. Don't think it works like that, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's just I don't understand it, and I don't know why they would continue with that. But I don't know. Other than that, like the other thing, like confidence-wise, it's lacking all over. I'd say Hellebuck's a little rusty from the time off with the knee. As a former goalie, I mean, generally he's on his goal line anyways because of his big, boring style. But even he challenges a little more than that. And it doesn't matter, Mike, that it's Kaprizov coming over. He's still a heart-winning goalie in the net too. He still is generally out more. And generally when goalies are not challenging like that, or not, I wouldn't say it's a bit of a confidence issue. And, so because it wasn't just that goal that happened on, and there was one other in the game, I believe, but that overtime goal a couple games ago where they moved it into the middle and sniped on him. I mean, it was setting up for the middle of a slot shot there. All he had to do was be at the top. He's so big. If he's just at the top of his crease instead of on his goal line, those pucks are hitting him. Mm-hmm. So I think he's playing with a little rusty, and he lacked a little bit of confidence at times in net. Now, I mean, he's still a Hart Trophy best goalie there is, really. So he still is got confidence. But if that makes any sense to you.
No, I see what you're saying, and I'm going to watch it a bit more closer now. But I appreciate the insights, Ticona. Thanks for the call tonight, buddy.
All right. Do you want to jump to the next call?
Yeah, let's do so.
Hi, caller. You're on the landing strip. What's your name and what would you like to talk about?
Oh, let's see. So, this is T-Will.
Oh, hey, T-Will.
How's it going, T-Will?
Good. So, I mean, the one thing I wanted to talk about is the one thing that nobody here is talking about. Does anybody consider that Chevy's job is really hard? Like, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but Winnipeg doesn't have warm climate in the wintertime. and we don't have we have like bad taxes. So it's like almost impossible to get players here, right? There's no other way to motivate a player to come to a place other than warm climate or bad or good taxes. That's it, right? So I mean, like nobody's considering that. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, just make sure that people are understanding how hard his job is.
Hey, T-Will, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
How did the Edmonton Oilers get around that problem?
Well, the Oilers, Nick, come on. Like the Oilers have like a history with like Gretzky and Curry. Like obviously they just like attract players because, or maybe it's the oil. I don't know. I have no idea why. But listen, this isn't about the Oilers. This is about the Jets. Okay. Chevy's job is super hard, and everybody just needs to remember it's super hard, and we just have to give him basically as much leash as he wants because it's hard, right? Like if you have a hard job, you should just be able to do as little as you want and dick around as much as you want, right? Like that's just the way people like with hard jobs. That's just what they do, right?
Hey, when you're cashing in millions of dollars over 15 years, I think your job's really tough.
Oh, right? Like nobody's considering how hard this job is. And like I said, there's no other way to motivate a player to come to a place other than warm climate or good taxes. That's it. There's nothing else that you can give a player at all to motivate them to come to a place they don't want to necessarily play. Like, look at Kaprizov, right? Like, that's why Kaprizov is in Florida right now, right?
Hey.
Wait, hang on.
I don't know if you heard that side of it.
Hang on. I gotta reformulate this plan here a little bit. Hang on.
Okay.
What was they saying again now? I don't remember.
Kaprizov in Florida.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, okay. BS aside, if you want players to come to your team, what do? You got to pay them. Chevy is so used to all these team-friendly contracts. I think he's kind of like lost the plot. I don't think he even knows what the market is anymore.
I definitely think he lost track of the market this past year.
I don't think he knows what a player is worth anymore. So like because he gets these guys for like, Shai for 8.5 and Helly for 8.5 and even Connor. I mean, like it wasn't really team friendly, but it wasn't like an overpay for sure. So like when all these people are saying like, oh, that player's too rich for our blood, too rich. Like if you want players to come to your team, that's what you got to do, right? It's either warm climate, good taxes, you're a winning team, or you got to pay them. That's it.
Yeah, and the other thing, you bring up a lot of the lame shit we do here, and you did a great job mocking it. But everyone talks about this idea that no trade clauses cost them too. What has been the success story in Winnipeg? It's been getting players in here young, and they see that they can live here and live a comfortable life, and then they extend. The reality that no one talks about, everyone's so obsessed with looking at this from the one direction that, oh, it's impossible to put over this team over the top, so we just got to be content with first-round loss after first-round loss. Guess what? There's a reverse side to this whole conversation where you could trade those guys, get a bulk load of under 25 talent that has no say in where they go because you cannot get a no-trade clause until age 27 or over. And voila, guess what? Highly talented players have to come to Winnipeg. You just have to change your perspective.
Right? Like that's the thing. Like, I mean, if you look at in the league, about 25, I think they said, I was looking into it, about 25-ish% of the league has a no trade clause. by definition, that means you should be able to get some second line players somewhere, right? And at this point now, but at this point, I don't even like talking about trades is pointless. Like this, like we're too far down the road. We've got a veteran team that our GM thought was going to be a cup contender. We're in last place. That should be grounds for firing right there. He's mortgaged the future, so we don't even have anybody really in the pipeline. So, I mean, we're talking about, like, we're on the Buffalo trajectory right now. Like, we're talking about, like, a 15-year rebuild.
That's a great point.
Like, really, the only way to salvage it, I see at this point, is looking at moving some of those star guys and just jump-starting the rebuild a little bit, because that's where we are. We're either going to ride this thing all the way into the ditch, or we're going to try and course correct a little bit and kind of, like, just wind up on the shoulder and pull it back. It's one of the two.
And I think that's a great point, because Mr. Meowcat was in the chat earlier saying, can Winnipeg support a bad team like Buffalo? When you hear the terms retool and rebuild, it's from people like us that want to avoid ending up in the Buffalo path. Because if the Winnipeg Jets end up in the Buffalo spot, it's going to be nearly impossible to dig themselves out of it. The blunt reality people have to start wrapping their head around, the way Shovel Dayoff manages this team and where this is going, you will end up in the Buffalo spot, and it's going to get real dark here in Winnipeg with the conversations that are going to come if they end up there. That is where this is going.
The way this is looking, we're just driving it straight into the ditch, and we're just going to keep going, like plowing, trying to go right through the farmer's field to get out. I don't get it.
Yeah. For a vanity project, Chipman wants to say his first 4 or 5 draft picks were drafted and developed and retired in Winnipeg. That's what this is all about at the core of it. I got to be honest.
Oh, great. If that's going to cost millions of dollars to do, then okay, well, whatever. I don't know.
I'm telling you, they won't have the balls to do the things they need to do to avoid this.
No, I know they won't. I know they're gonna ride these guys right into the ground, and there's no way they're going anywhere until, they're in the back end of like maybe the last 2 years of their contract, either buy them out or trade them to Columbus or who knows what. I don't know, for like a 7th round pick or who knows what. But yeah, it's gonna be that.
Talk about bleeding value. Talk about bleeding value.
That's right. All right, thanks, bud. I gotta go.
Hey, T. Will, thanks for the call. Great to hear from you. Thanks for bringing the laughs. T. Kona Polly points out, come on now. Buffalo just won 8 in a row. Caitlin Doucette says, teams that end up in the basement for 5+ years, Buffalo, San Jose, Chicago, Detroit, all held on to aging cards far too long. That is the biggest takeaway. If you study the NHL, if you take yourself out of the Winnipeg bubble and you see what's worked historically in this league, hell, Mikey, your Montreal Canadiens are one of the best up-and-coming teams right named. And they committed to a rebuild after going to a cup final because they knew they were fraudulent.
Yep.
The teams that get through it quickly. The teams that hold on and watch the value bleed away from their best assets that can kickstart that process for you and help you build that base overnight end up in the lengthy spots. And that is what's terrifying to me. Every time those words come up, it's not because I want this team to just blow it up and I'm tired of it. I want to see a new thing. The direction it is fundamentally heading to is very dangerous for this market, this organization, and this fan base.
Yes.
It's just where it's going.
It's a scary thought when you look at it, right? We talked about it a couple shows ago. There's a difference between unintentionally bad for years on end and an active rebuild. The rebuild starts when you commit to moving out those bigger pieces, those guys that are the ones that's going to hurt, the one that, you've got a jersey on sitting at home, that's when that rebuild starts. Before that, you're just a bad team kind of wallowing in that lower to middle spot, and you're not doing anything but spinning your tires. That's not a rebuild. That's not a retool. That's just being bad. And that's not what we want, right? Nobody is advocating for 6-7 years of the Jets being at the bottom of the league. We want to avoid that. That is the exact opposite of what we're advocating for, right? You have to then come to that harsh reality sometimes that it's going to mean the player that you've got that jersey on your back getting a ticket out of town.
And Frosty says a rebuild teardown like Chicago, San Jose costs you 5 to 7 years of any playoffs, and I'm not sure this city makes it through that. San Jose was trying to compete when they traded for Erik Karlsson. They tried to compete from 2019 to 2021. They cost themselves 3 years. So then we're talking about 2 to 4 years. They did not start trading off their guys until 2022, 2023. And by that point, we're talking about a Couture that was done. We're talking about, what's his name that ended up in Hurdle. We're talking about a 34-year-old Hurdle on a contract that they had to eat money on to get value back. We're talking about a Karlsson whose value decreased as he aged. Those situations were worse because they tried to win to be a playoff team for the first 3 years of them and then finally realized they were hooped.
Yep.
That's why it took so long. Now imagine, let's say that here right now, the Winnipeg Jets trying to win has brought them to 30th in the NHL through 36 games. We're talking about a core who's all 30 and over. We're talking about a management team that has completely misdiagnosed this team over the last 18 months and has sped up this process, but also led us here because they have a bottom 10 pool. What I'm trying to sound the alarm bells here is where you guys want to avoid is where the Winnipeg Jets are taking you by sticking to this. And it is a scary conversation. I'm scared of it. That is why I'm sounding those alarm bells, because you're right. 5 to 7 years would get real dark here. And now let's play this out. Let's say they finish 30th this year. Let's say next year they finish like 23rd. They have a bit of a bounce back, but they never get back to the playoff line. But hey, we saw a bit of a jump. Our top pick looked good. It's going to take another step the next year. Meanwhile, the current core you're betting on slowly goes this way. And you're not having the talent push it back up. You end up missing the playoffs year over year without committing to an actual plan. And that's the scariest place to be. And that's why I'm there.
Yeah, it's you nailed it. It's exactly what we're trying to avoid.
And Joe ACTK says the takeaway from last year should have been, with everything going right, they're still not close to good enough. True North takeaway, we are close. Just need more experience and vets to take us over the top. It's kind of where it ended up.
Yep.
He's not wrong.
Like I said, anytime Chevy's had to be reactionary, he's done okay a lot of those times. We've talked about it. We've given him those flowers, during those times. Anytime he's had to be, proactive, this is where we end up. I don't think they have anybody in-house in management who knows how to take the group over, who knows how to take them from a close to being a winner to being a winner. I think that help has to come from outside, and I just don't know if they're ready to do that. The Montreal example is a perfect one, right? They brought in a president of hockey operations to oversee everything and a GM to then do the day-to-day work. They brought in guys from organizations that were winning, that had that experience at that spot. And I think for the Jets to finally get out of the rut where they're in, they're going to need to make a big change in that management structure by bringing in somebody to be that president of hockey ops.
Infinity comment says blowing it up avoids 5 to 7 years of being Buffalo. I want to paint this another way, actually. Let's keep it local. Everyone here would remember the 2018 season. For me, the pinnacle of my fandom watching the NHL, going to the Western Conference Finals. I truly think that's the best version of the Winnipeg Jets I'll ever see in my lifetime. If they get there again, unbelievable. But that roster was incredible. It was followed by 6 up and down seasons that never looked like a contender again until last year. Who's to say we don't go down that path? And let's add 6 years to a 33-year-old Mark Scheifele. Let's add 6 years to a 33-year-old Connor Heilbuck. Let's add 6 years to a 33-year-old Adam Lowry. Let's add 6 years to Kyle Connor. If what this organization has showed us in the past plays out again this way, again, they're walking you off the ledge with their best assets by keeping them here. And Mr. Meowcat says, Chevy is playing 4-dimensional chess and we are not smart enough. I will not add. So I had someone tweet this at me today that this is a stealth tank and this was all the plan. I will not let people go about this and excuse Kevin Cheveldayoff for this job, because Caitlin Doucette nailed it, saying, I'm convinced that Chevy genuinely fully believed that signing Taves would convince Ehlers to stay, and that's where everything started to go wrong. They paid Jonathan Taves $5.5 million.
Yep.
By the end of this. Probably 5 now, because they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yep.
They believed he was the answer. They believed they were going to keep Ehlers because of it. They made a terrible bet. DL points out Buffalo left, that's why. Nick Ehlers left. There's a big hole that's thrown. There's a parallel right there, and we're talking about an older team that's going to go backwards, not gain something from it. But this idea that Kevin Cheveldayoff is such a mastermind that he's playing some fucked up chess to get a lottery pick in a year that they just invested $96 million into Kyle Connor, into the year after Connor Hellebuck won a Hart. Stop. It is pathetic. It is pathetic. Kevin Cheveldayoff needs to wear this. We can't dress this up as some great plan because it might lead to a lottery pick. What Kevin Cheveldayoff built in 15 years of work has the Winnipeg Jets back to where he started, having a comparable team to the Atlanta Thrashers with some better assets on the roster to move off of if they had the balls to do it. They have a bottom 10 farm system like they did back then. Not much to be excited about there. They have a one-line team. They have a pair of pretty damn good defensemen. And they have a better goalie this time. That's where we've arrived. In 15 years of his life's work, he's not getting off on this. He made every wrong step for the last 18 months to arrive here.
Yeah, it's insane to give him a pass on this by saying this was the plan. This was not the plan. This was, well, to be fair, this was the plan. It was just not a very good one. He thought this was a winning formula. He thought this was the recipe, right? As we've heard them, say in game this year. We know at this point what Chevy's good at, what he's not good at. We've seen it over and over again. It's been 15 years of this. He doesn't have what it takes to put this roster over, and the times that he's
change the direction,
because this is what they want. This is the direction that they've decided in is their best way to win.
They still believe in it.
They still believe in it. That's why I push back, and I used to be one of these people, but I push back on they don't want to win. They're fine losing. They don't care. I honestly don't believe that anymore. I believe they do want to win. They just don't have a clue on how to do that in this NHL. They just don't. They have nobody in-house who knows how to do that. So you have this echo chamber of people going, yeah, this is the right way. Yeah, this is the right way. When it's clearly not. When it's clearly not working. When that's just not the way that the league operates anymore. They don't have that external set of eyes, that second set to come in and tell them where those mistakes are. And anybody who does is then, waved off as, you're a hater. You just want to complain. Last year we were so adamant on they need to add big at the deadline. They need to add big at the deadline. You have to cash in on this season. This is the best season that you've had in such a long time. You've got lightning in a bottle. Now's the time to add. And people told us we were crazy. No, this is a long window. This is not just a 1-year thing. They're going to be good forever. This is no problem. Why are you freaking out? And then the deadline happened. The things went the way they did. And, we kind of were proven right. And we get to the offseason, losing the pieces they did without real replacements. I don't care what you say about those free agent ads. We told you in the offseason those were fourth-line ads. To come through with that being the only thing that you did in the offseason as the solution, it shows you that they don't know what it is to win. They don't know what it takes to put a group over like this. And you can't expect the people who put you in this position to get you out of it. You can't.
Bro, there is comedy sketches that can't be written as good and as funny as watching back the Taves presser.
Yeah.
Now, 36 games later, they were in tears, brother, to make that signing.
Remember when they laughed at the Taves is not a fourth-line player. And they were right. He probably should be in the press box. He's not a fourth-line player at this point. Correct. Good job, Scott. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that this was the plan. And like you said, the way that Taves' contract is structured, they expected him to be the 2C. They expected him to be that answer. They expected, 2014 Jonathan Taves, not 2025. And it just was a ridiculous ask. It just never was going to work out that way.
Yeah, a couple takes from the chat. T. Will says he's the best reactive GM in the league and the worst proactive GM in the league, in which T. Cohen Pauly says we do need a proactive general manager. Palmerlane points out the constant excuses Chevy gets is just stupid. The team's won 4 playoff games, or 4 playoff series in 14 seasons. Not great, folks. Chevy doesn't know shit, says Matt Rothman. People shouldn't forget about 2019 to 2021 with his defensive additions. It was literally one of the worst defensive teams in history. There's a lot of truth to that.
They've never been able to identify NHL talent on defense within the league.
Al Camino also points out, don't forget his bonuses are on next year's cap for HS. So we don't have this year's second.
Yep.
Don't have next year's second.
Nope.
And got a cap overage likely. Cook, Cheveldayoff, Cook.
Oh.
But I want to ask you your thoughts on this because this is something I've been thinking of lately as well. Jordy Angus said, related to this point, how is it acceptable for Chevy or Chipman not to address the media or fans about this season so far? I'll send that your way because I've been thinking about this lately, especially as a season ticket holder that's getting his renewals in the next couple of weeks. This has been crossing my mind more than I'd like to admit.
How diplomatic do I have to be? Like 50%?
Yeah, sure.
I would not hold my breath for any type of mea culpa press conference in season from Kevin Cheveldayoff or Mark Chipman. You will not hear them come to the fan base hat in hand or with any type of, remorse or anything resembling humility. It's just not going to happen. You may get a angry letter chastising you for not being a good enough fan or not coming to enough games if the attendance starts to drop consistently, or if it becomes a national conversation like it was a couple years ago and then he looks bad on television. Outside of that, no, you will not be getting a Mark Chipman or Chevy presser because in their mind, they are not answerable to you, the fans. They're just not. They don't view the organization part of the team as being answerable to the fans. To them, this is still a solo run business kind of, and that's been kind of evident in a lot of the material that's been put out by the team over the years, especially when things aren't going well. So that's why I think you won't get that.
You know what's funny? You know what their tagline was to start the year, but they really abandoned it real quick?
Oh, remind me.
We're just getting started.
Oh, excellent.
We're just getting started was the tagline of the year.
It's like when you don't plug your car in the winter and it just won't start. Just like that kind of getting started.
Maybe the tank and the rebuild's just getting started and they didn't know it yet.
That's right.
But Jordy on this point says, I'm not expecting it either, but it's maybe the most glaring example of how the org runs itself like a secret military operation. I don't think we'll get, I disagree with you to an extent. I think we're going to get it towards the end of January because of the season ticket holders. And I don't think that's going to be a great process for them. At some point, there's going to have to be some kind of acknowledgement from this team that they fucked up if they want people to trust them and buy back in. I'm not expecting them to be forthcoming with it. I think it's going to be a reaction to low numbers and trying to get ahead of that. That's what it's going to take to wake them up and get them out of those top offices over at True North. If they're listening here as a season ticket holder, I would love some clarity on where this thing's going before I decide to renew for next year. At least an acknowledgement that you guys know that you fucked up. But Caitlin Doucette points out they genuinely believe that this team's too good to fail. And until they do, how do I buy into spending my money on stupidity? I don't blame anyone that doesn't.
Yeah. And I can see them coming out with we had a lot of injuries to start the year. We were behind the 8 ball. We lost Connor Hellebuck for weeks at a time. The Olympic break really set off the schedule. It was really condensed. We had a tough schedule this year. Like, I can just see the excuses that they can peddle out as to why they didn't fuck up in the offseason, why it's not their fault, and why running it back again next year just with like 1 or 2 tweaks is going to be the pitch. That's where I think they're going to end up.
Going to be fascinating. because it's not coming around. I will continue to say it pretty loudly. In fact, last night's game made me feel really good about where this is going draft-wise. But there was a draft question, and then we'll move into getting on the show for the night here. Roll Cole 66 said, draft question, what did Perfetti have over Winnipeg or Jarvis? So looking back, I think it's very easy with hindsight with the Seth Jarvis thing. Obviously a stud right in our backyard. Great personality too. Like, talk about a guy that would have been a superstar in the city. But going back to that draft, after the big guys at the top, there was really a run of centers. And there was, I guess, some D that went earlier. So the run of centers was Cole Perfetti, it was Anton Lundell, and it was Marco Rossi that everyone was excited about at that draft class. And they were ranked in like the 5 to 7 range. And then a couple D popped up above them, if I remember that correctly now. Was that Drysdale and Sanderson?
Yep.
Same draft?
You got her.
Oh, look at that, pulling it out of my ass. So the center run fell to a point where the Jets were going to be able to address this 2C problem with the top 10 pick. Minnesota went Rossi. Winnipeg went Perfetti. Lundell went right after to Florida. And then Jarvis went a pick or two later. So Jarvis would not have been a popular pick at the time based on where the hockey world was at that stage. The fact that they took Cole Perfetti and didn't even give him an NHL run as an NHL centerman really amplifies how bad that pick in comparison looks like with him now being a winger. Because obviously if you got that 2C, that answers one of the biggest questions they've had for a ton of time. I still think his game and his attributes matches center better, and I think he looks worse as a winger given what he can't do in this NHL versus what he can. But they never let it marinate. He played, 2 games? I think at the beginning, 2 years ago?
Yep.
And that was it. So then it amplifies on why there's such a big conversation around it, because he was supposed to be an NHL center. And they didn't let that kind of happen or even try it.
I was really hoping we were going to get a look at that in the off season this year during training camp and stuff to see if there was maybe a chance at Perfetti getting an opportunity one more time at that center ice position. But then, you signed Jonathan Taves, you get that opportunity. How can you pass that up? So definitely a good thing that Perfetti's back on the wing. And yeah, I totally agree. The pick of Jarvis at the time would not have looked like it does right now. We get that benefit of hindsight.
And I do wonder, and I'm a big Jarvis guy, I just do wonder about how he would have been integrated into Winnipeg's lineup and what that development would have looked like, and if he would have become the same player as he did in Carolina.
Well, he'd have to play with the Moose for 6 to 8 years first before he gets that opportunity. So,
and I'm with Caitlin Doucette here. I'm hesitant to blame GMs for taking a consensus pick that turns out to be a bust, but they fucked his development. I think that's the best way to summarize it.
Yep.
In
Totally
fact,
agree.
like where they got him, if they took either Cole Perfetti or Anton Lundell, I was stoked. So that's where I was at then. I see why it happened. Unfortunately, didn't work out up the middle, which would have been the real big driver for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, they're gonna eventually have to figure out this this drafting a center and moving them to wing thing, because they do this way too often.
Yes, someone had pointed out. I think Pierogies in our chat had pointed that out a couple shows ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Hey, we've been talking for a while. We appreciate you being here on a Sunday evening. Anything else you thought of on the way out, Mikey, or should we move on with the show tonight?
I think I think we hit on most things.
I guess one thing, Kevin, he got traded today. So
that's
maybe
right. Yep.
he jumps into one of the best teams in the O. We'll see what that means for him the rest of the year. The Swedes, especially Alfred Frey, have really liked his game at the World Juniors. I worry he'll be the next Billy Hainola, unfortunately.
Oh, God.
Given how he plays the game and his size and what this org's looking for. But there's some skills to be excited there for Team Sweden.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you for being here. We'll be back tomorrow after the Edmonton Oilers. McDray come into town. Can you believe the Winnipeg Jets are going to play a team tomorrow that has their top 2 players offensively probably playing on separate lines? Crazy, but it's going to happen in Winnipeg. It is allowed in the NHL. I read the CBA over the break. No rules against it. Let's see how that plays out.
Right on. Good night, everybody.
Good night.